Hey, my YouTube friends. Now that the Street Rod show is over, so I'm done working on my brother's Nova and on the Pontiac, it's time to get back onto the 75 Nova project. Last video, after we did metal work, getting that quarter done and fixed the bench seat, time to move on to some more metal work. And I think what I'm going to do is finish all the metal work on this side before I tack the quarter panel on the opposite. So I think up next is going to be this lower front part of the quarter, as well as this wheelhouse opening. Looks like there's some bubbling there. I think what I'm going to do is get this rocker panel off and start cleaning this up and see what we got under there. We can obviously tell we got some plastic hiding in there. So with all these screws now removed, we should be able to just simply lift it up off of the other mounts. There we go. That's simple. They're all pretty simple. So just some self-tapping screws is all they use. Looks like this has been off before and someone's painted it. So you can see that's been repainted blue at one point. It's unknown yet if my wife wants this on the car or not. Actually, there was a point where I did have stone guards on the car. Also had chrome moldings for the inside. What had happened is I had wrecked the car at one point, and I had picked up a four-door 75 LN Nova as a parts car. And so I took all that kind of stuff, all the chrome. Actually, I completely rebuilt that car. That is my original 75 using that LN. I swapped the entire subframe, which gave me disc brakes, power steering, which I didn't have before. When I first got my 75 Nova, I think it was on the lot, used car lot for $995, and I think I paid like $800 or $850, something like that. It was an inline six, 3-speed on the column, vinyl bench, all vinyl interior, and it had no options in it. I mean, no power brakes. It was just standard brakes. I mean, it was really a stripped down model. And so wrecking it actually was kind of a good thing because it gave me everything. I took the entire drivetrain out of that LN Nova, which was the 262 V8, the 350 turbo trans. It had the shifter and console on the floor, even though it was a four-door. That was kind of a bizarre thing. It had bucket seats in it. I put the bucket seats in my Nova. One of the problems I did have, since it came out of a four-door, they did not go forward. They only reclined, so they only went up so far. But the driver's side was broken, so you could actually push it all the way up. So it actually kind of worked out in a way. But yeah, if I was going to have anybody riding in the car in the back seat, they had to go in through the driver's side in order to get into the back seat. I'm not sure what she's going to want. If she's going to want that that chrome, this polished stone guard on there, I'm not sure yet. I haven't talked to her so much on that. Looking at this, looks like it's, oh yeah, that feels a little wavy right down in here. Somebody probably put a jack under it at one point, would be my guess, is probably what happened. Yeah, it's dented up in there. I think someone probably put a jack up under there at one point. Next thing I want to do, now that that's out of the way, I don't have to worry about messing that up, is start peeling this back and see what we got going on up in here. Take a little closer look at what we got here. You can see, looks like pop rivets all down through here. You can see all these cut lines. So someone just formed some metal apparently and pop riveted it on. Pretty rough. Can't feel anything on the inside other than the back of where all those pop rivets were, but I did not know those were there. That was all fairly decent looking, but I could tell it was just a little wavy, that there was probably a plastic there. But here you can see it's thick. And down in here, I guess there might have been a hole. They just filled that right on in. Surprisingly, the seam isn't bad. Usually the seam rots out on these cars, and it's really not too bad. I mean, there's surface rust on there. I can less preservative and counter that. But yeah, this here feels like a little wave, like it's going in. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge to get this right. Yeah, I'm going to say that's probably where my seam is, somewhere in here, because yeah, Yeah, as I'm looking at this a little bit closer, that's what it is. It's right across here is what they did. They just probably covered it up. I bet you if I cut that out of there, what's left of this is probably folded up inside of that. So we'll see how we're going to end up doing this, figure it out. But I'm going to finish digging things up, getting that busted up here. So I need to reproduce this, which I can possibly do in some different pieces of metal and different layers. But I've got this Ventura fender that I'm not going to use because of that. And this curve is pretty darn close. Now this one's a little misshapen from some other damage, but I think I can fix that after I cut this out. So I think I'm going to cut this out and test fit that up on the Nova. So after cutting out that fender, there was a brace that was on here, so I had to drill out the spot welds and get that out of the way. Now this does have more of a folded lip, so it's not going to directly fit over top, but I just wanted to kind of eye it up and see how it is. And it's surprisingly close. So I think I'm going to make a couple marks and shorten this up a little bit. After making a few cuts, we have our piece. It doesn't fit half bad. Still gonna have to manipulate a little bit of it, but overall I feel pretty happy with the way this is gonna work out. So I'm just standing back looking at this, seeing if I like it. I cut away some of what was here. Now this is still some of the repair someone else made, so it's not perfect the way this lines up. So I may have to make something here to make this right, rebuild that part of it, which I'm not too concerned about that right now. But overall I'm pretty happy with general fit of this. Now I'm gonna have to make this back wider to match this, so this will probably all be cut out and I'll just make all new metal in here. And of course the back inner wheelhouse, that's gonna have to be completely rebuilt because a lot of that's rotted away. But really that saved me a lot of work by being able to reuse that piece, and gives me the satisfaction also of reusing a bit of a fender that I saved. But again, I'm pretty happy with most of what this is. So I'm just going to continue to work at it, and I'll probably bring you back in after I've got it basically tacked in here. Bring you up to speed where I'm at this point. I went ahead and made another piece for the inner wheel well. And what I wound up doing is I actually cut it out of some leftover wheelhouse that was from that junkyard car. Relatively had the shape, I just had to bend it a little bit better to make it fit that space. But you can see I joined it together with what was rotted and attached it down in here. Now they had that exposed before with just plastic over it. So this is gonna get sheet metal over top to rebuild this bottom corner. This is that piece from the Pontiac fender. I have it all cleaned off, but I keep laying that up in here. I'm pretty happy with the way this is gonna, I think this is gonna come out of here. There is no access to the inside of this quarter panel, so I can't do a cut and butt method with cutting that scrap off and then pulling it out. So I'm gonna end up, as you can see, I already have some marker listed on there where it's gotta be. I'm gonna end up having to cut that out ahead of time and then try to butt weld this together, which isn't always the best method because sometimes you can make some mistakes. So I'm gonna probably cut well to this side of that line, so I have plenty of meat and I can keep kind of sneaking up on it till I get this to have a really nice fit. So that's what I'm gonna start working on here next. Okay, with that cut, pull that out of the way. I can see the rest of that. I can probably clean that up and fill in any other little holes that are in here. Get that finished up nicely. Now let's go ahead and do a little test fit here. It's not too bad. Again, I want to sneak up on this a little bit, but you can see that's actually that actually looks pretty good. It's just amazing that this is just a piece of fender. All right, so before I actually get that on there, I want to clean this up a little bit more, get any of those holes filled in, and then paint this so that's all protected. This is showing that all the holes are filled in. Everything's ready to go, nice and clean, nice and sturdy. All right. Well, I got my replacement piece tacked into place. I didn't want to do too many welds right away. I didn't want to warp this panel or anything. So it's actually cooling off now, but pretty happy with the way it's coming out. I just put a piece of metal over it to cover that other hole that I haven't addressed just yet, just so you can see the slope of this coming down. So I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. So it's still got some doctoring up to do. This is not quite right up here. It's a little flat. This is the leftover part of the repair from a previous owner. So it's possible I may end up cutting that out and using a little bit of this for filler, but we'll see. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. All the back has been rebuilt. Now, after this is all finished up, then I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to cut this free from here and then make a new inner piece, since this is kind of misshapen, and then I'll cut both of them at the same time and get a real nice lip that runs the whole way down. But I think that's where I'm going to stop here for tonight. Pretty happy with the way that came out. Next day on the 75 Nova, and what I think I'm going to do here next before I finish all this bit of welding, I think I'm going to work on filling this area back in. And what I did is just got off my scrap pile. This was the piece that was part of the rear quarter that I cut out. Looking at the back side, I think this metal is going to be okay. It's already got a slight curve to it, so it won't take much to make a little bend to mimic this. So I just made a couple marks here. I'm just going to cut a piece out, get all this cleaned up, and go ahead and start fitting this to repair that. So you can see I got my repair panel in here, and got my seam here. It's a little hard to see. I'm going to move this direction, and maybe that'll be a little bit more visible. But it'll get cleaned up. It'll get some more welds on there and continue that line, make it look real good. You can see I just ended it short over here. What I'm working on next is going to be putting this strip in. You can see I already have a line struck, so it's going to clean this edge up. So this piece is going to end up being butt welded in there. And then I'll also have to make a piece down below. This isn't the piece that's going in, but you can get an idea that it'll just continue to fill in and then make it follow that contour. So I'm just going to keep working at it here. So here it is a number of weeks later since the other parts of this video that you've seen. So things have been very hot around here, and I've been very busy on my day job, so I had to take a couple weeks off. I just couldn't get myself motivated. It's just too burnt out till I get home. So back on this, can't remember exactly where I left off, but I do have most of the outer wheel lip at least roughed in. I still have some area in this area to fix up the previous repairs from a previous owner, so I'll end up cutting that out. But before I do that, I'm actually going to start forming up the inside lip. So I had made a piece that was ready to go, and I already have my lines on there. So we're going to take that out because this is a little short and everything, because this was part of a front fender and wasn't really meant for this. But we're going to end up splicing this in. So that's what I'm going to work on here next. Got this pretty well cleaned up. Got this back inner wheel well done. So I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. Still have a couple little areas here and there to fix up, but good and sturdy. So I'm pretty happy with all that. Working on this final part here. That piece that was in there, this was leftovers from what was repaired. You can see a pop rivet still sticking in that. So I'll cut that junk out of there, and what I wound up doing was cutting another piece out of the old Ventura spare fender. So I got that little piece right here. And as we line it up, I think that will do. That'll be our repair. So I'm going to go ahead and get the paint cleaned off of that, get this welded into place, and clean up all my welds, and I think that's going to call it for a day. After a little bit more welding and grinding, got this in pretty good shape. Got that piece replaced, and still some other low areas that could be filled in, but I think it's good enough. I may just use some body filler that'll fill that in when that comes the time. It's just a little low spot in there, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. Back on the inside here, I like the lines, looks pretty good. So overall, I think this rear quarter panel with the exception of these holes and a little bit of repair in here, this whole quarter panel will be done. So maybe I'll try to finish that tomorrow. We'll have to see. So I think this is going to do for this particular video. Again, I apologize to everybody that it's taken me a while to put out some more content. It's just been too hot and I've been just too burnt out from work. But I have another Carlisle event that's coming up. That'll be the Corvettes at Carlisle show. I've been to that show many times in the past, but I haven't been there since COVID, and since I sold the Corvette, it didn't make sense for me to go. So I'll be looking forward to checking that event out again. There'll be more content coming on this particular Nova here in time. I'm going to try and get myself back onto a schedule so I can try to get some things done on it and make some progress. It really would be nice to get paint on this before the end of the year. If you like seeing this content and you're not a subscriber, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like it, give me a good thumbs up there. I appreciate that, and drop a comment. As always, thanks for watching.